Hello and welcome to Christmas in July 2023 with Venetia Ramsey from Scrapworks. For project 1, we are going to create a double page layout with an interactive element, and I'm going to be using our Lost and Found collection. If you're using something different, you're going to need 3 coordinating patterns. You will need 3 plain cardstock, and I think to create your background, and then you'll need extra cardstock to match your photographs. You will see I have already put that in your requirements. And then you're going to need a collection of elements, fussy cut elements or ephemera or anything that you have on hand, enough to be able to decorate your page with. So the layout that we're going to create looks like this. I've already put it into the insert so that it makes more sense. Okay, so when you open up, that is what you're going to see. Okay, move it over a little bit so you can see better. Right, so there's your the full 30 by 30 on this side, and then there's the first flap that we created when we made the little inserts, and then here's your flap number 3. So in today's workshop, not only are you going to embellish inside the pocket, you're going to create stuff to go inside your pockets, but we are also going to add a little interactive element to the top of the pocket, and that's what's going to help us turn. Remember, ladies, if you're not wanting to do an interactive layout, if you take out, maybe I can turn them, if you just take the little flaps out, you can create your layout. It's lifting now because I've got it tucked under, just like that. So you can create just a 2-page, double page layout without the interactive element to it. It works, it balances. All it does is changes your title to read as Remember the Now, instead of having the title that I have, which is Time is not measured by minutes, but by moments. So really easy to adapt to suit your style. And again, remember, you will need 3 coordinating pattern papers, and just with those 3 we create all of this, but you do need quite a bit of little ephemera and embellishments to get going. All right, so I'm going to pack everything up and we'll get started with the layout. All right, so out of the 3 plain cardstocks, black cardstocks, you're going to cut one to measure 11 centimeters by 30.5, and the other one is 19 centimeters by 30.5. Okay, and like I said in your prep video, you will need to trim them just slightly. You're going to trim off a slight little edge for them to be able to fit into the inserts that we've joined together. Okay, so that's going to go in there. I mean, it is a sliver that you will need to take off to get them to fit inside. Oops. All right, so it is really a sliver that gets taken off for them to fit. So it'll be true to the 11 centimeters that goes inside there. So when this eventually goes in your album, your full sheet will go in there. This page will turn over, this one will flap over, and then that will flap, and you'll have your 2 base pages. Okay, so we're going to work, to be able to do this, we're going to work on 1 strip of paper at a time. So we'll work on the left base page, then we'll work on this small flap, then we'll work on the base page of this one, and then we'll work on the bigger flap. It's just going to be easier that way, but we can cut all the papers we need for everything in one go. All right, so like I said, I'm working with a Lost and Found, so we'll first start with our photos. So remember, we need 1 big photo that's going to measure 18 centimeters across and 29 centimeters down. So you will need to cut a photo mat that is 18.5 centimeters across and 30.5 centimeters down. All right, and then you're going to need another 2 photos, landscape, that measure 15 centimeters across, 10 centimeters down, and you will cut 2 photo mats that measure 15.5 centimeters across, 10.5 centimeters down. Okay, and then you're going to need another one that's 10 by 15 portrait, and you're going to cut a piece that measures 10.5 centimeters across, 15.5 centimeters down, and this is the only one that's going to get a photo mat. So out of your dark cardstock, you're going to cut a piece that measures 11 centimeters across, 16 centimeters down, and that one's going to go on top of that, like that. All right. And then you're going to need 8 photos that measure 10 by 10, and you will need 8 photo mats that measure 10.5 centimeters by 10.5 centimeters to mat the photos onto. So like that. So out of all of them, only one is going to have a double mat. We're going to use the background paper, the black, your base pages, as your mats. That way we're able to eliminate some of the bulk that you often get with interactive pages. Right, so we'll put those aside and we'll get to them when we need them. Okay, so out of your pattern paper number 1, okay, so I'm going to refer to this one as pattern paper number 1. If you're following along, you're going to use the paper that's called Lock and Key. This is from our full pack, right? So you're going to, out of that page, I'm using the back side of it. You're going to cut for the left side, you're going to cut a piece that measures 3 centimeters across, 29.5 centimeters down. And then for the right base page, you're going to cut a piece that measures 11 centimeters across, 29.5 centimeters down. All right, so that will be your pattern paper number 1. For your pattern paper number 2, I'm just going to put the ones we need off to the side. I'm going to use this one. So if you're using mine, it's called Time Machine. I'm using the back of the one called Time Machine. And you're going to cut for the right side, left side of the page, a piece that measures 15.5 centimeters across, 29.5 centimeters down. Another one that measures 7.5 centimeters across, 29.5 centimeters down. And your last one that measures 3 centimeters across, 29.5 centimeters down. So that'll be your pattern paper number 2. All right, for your pattern paper number 3, I'm going to use this one. It is called Tattered and Torn, and I'm using the back of it. All right, so we need quite a few of these. So I would suggest you cut a 4.5 centimeter strip like that, and then we'll cut a 4 centimeter strip. I'll organize them, then we can go through them quickly. Right, so cut a strip. I think you will need to cut 3 4.5 centimeters and 3 4 centimeter strips. Okay, then you're going to, out of the 4.5 centimeter strips, I need 4 that measure 10.5 centimeters across. So 10.5 centimeters across, 4.5 down. There are 4 of them like that. Then you need one that is 9.5 centimeters across, and another piece that is 5.5 centimeters across. Okay, and then we're going to do the same with the 4 centimeter strips. You're going to need 4 that measure 10.5 centimeters across, 4 centimeters down. 1 that measures 9.5 centimeters across, 4 centimeters down, and another one that measures 5.5 centimeters across, 4 centimeters down. So that is out of your pattern paper number 3. Okay, then you should have fussy cut all the little elements out of the cut apart sheets. What you will need as well is just a little bit of spare black cardstock or dark cardstock, whatever your base is, to be able to mat some of the wording onto. I'd like to do that with you. Right, so out of this this side, I want the word that says, I want you to take out the word just perfect, today's story, documented, important, and love this. You can choose anything that you like, but those are the ones that I will be working with. All right. Then from this piece, all I want from here is the sentiment that says all of our keepsakes. Okay, so I just cut this piece out of that, right? And from this piece here, I cut that, I can't remember the size. Right. I cut a piece off here at 7.5 centimeters across by 4. I think it's 4 centimeters down, 3.5 centimeters down. And I made a little like ticket. So I just, when I do that, I just use this little punch, and I just use that then to, I'll show you on this side because I am going to tuck it in. I just punch the corner out to create a ticket like that. Okay, all right, so I turn that into a ticket. But don't throw the happy away, we'll use that somewhere else. Okay, so we've got that, so that just out of that piece over there, right? And here we go with the happy. So I did the same thing with the happy. I just cut that little strip off there. I've cut that piece to also 7.5 centimeters, and it's 2 centimeters that you're going to need, so we need that part. So if I put it down on here, I've taken the happy. I took this little piece that is time and precious, and I've taken all of our keepsakes. So I've just taken what I wanted instead of, I think often we get pattern papers and there's so much going on and you just don't know really how to use it. Just take the bits and pieces that you want to use. So I think from this one, that's all we're going to need. All right, so that's from the steam powered. At the back of the steam powered, I have this, right? So from this one, I want the time is measured by minutes, not by moments. Okay, so if I put these away, right, so I want this piece here, right? And I'm going to cut a piece of the black cardstock to mat it. So this is 10 by 15. I cut mine to be 10, I think by 15.5. Yep. And I cut a piece of black cardstock to measure 11 by 16, and I plan to mat that on like that, right? I also cut apart this piece over here. So I've taken that. Let's see. I think, oh yes, then also from this piece, I've cut out the word memories. I forgot about that. So we need that little piece as well. So I also just cut out what I thought I would need from there. All right. Just having a look where everything comes from. All right. Then, so we've got that. I think that's everything from here. Oh, there we go. And then from here, this piece, I cut this entire piece out. I'll show you now. Right. So I've taken this whole piece here. But I took this piece, I cut it out separately, but I used both pieces. So we need that. And then from this, life is in the details, I just wanted this little piece from there. I think if you have a look here, once you've cut everything out, you have this piece left. You know, once you've cut out some of the words and stuff, I think this little strip here was left. So I just did it from the offcut of that. So that's where he comes from, all right? And I think that's all that is from this page. If I need more, I'll come back here. Okey-dokey. Then I cut out both sheets of this because we're going to use quite a bit. So you should have cut out both of these. So from this sheet, from the if you fussy cut all the little elements, I'm using one. Let's put these away. I'm using one of the big gears and both of the small ones. This one, I've cut out both of these. With the locks, I cut out the lock on both. I'm going to use both of those. I need both clocks, right? and these little cogs, I cut out both. That's these, right? I'm only using one each of the gears, but you should have cut everything out. Let's put it so that you can see everything, all right? From this, I only cut the clock face out. I've just cut all of that off, so I've got that. And I cut out, I'm using this arrow, but I'm going to attach the clock face to that. So we've got that like that. Let's see. From the little 5A, I'm going to use both of those. I'm going to use this little gear here, so that you'll need. This little piece comes from, I cut it, it was left over with all the cutting apart. I just cut this little piece off. It's a little spare piece, but we'll be using that. So don't throw anything away. And from this piece here, because we cut out the memories, when you turn it over, we have this little piece left here. And I'm going to use that little offcut from that. So this would be here, and the memories is at the top here. So I'm just going to turn that over and use that piece. So don't throw anything away. We use everything. Then I have the little lock. I'm going to use that. And then both, we need two of these. So I've got both of them ready to use. And I wanted to use make up the word remember the now, but I found the arrows didn't want to work with me with what I wanted to do. So what I did is, from this piece, I just cut off the remember. So I've got that. And then I fussy cut out the word the, from then I fussy cut out the and now. Okay, so I just lost the end, so I just took the, so remember the, and from this arrow I fussy cut the now. So I just left it together and then just cut it out so that that would work like that. And then you're also going to need the little globe. Okay, then these little goodies, the little screws, I'm going to use all four of the small ones. We're going to need those. Okay, and then from the grey board goodies that we made, I need the three little arrows, the blue ones that we've made, and the little yellow ones. I also have put a little moustache aside. I haven't quite decided if I want to use it or not, but I have them on hand just in case. Right, so I'm just going to put everything back onto my tray. So I like to keep everything nicely all together on the tray, normally sorted out so it's easy for me to get to. I'll fix that up in a bit. Right, so I think so that you don't lose anything, it's always good to have something that you can keep your little embellishments in. Then the rest of the goodies that have been fussy cut, they're on a separate tray in case, and close at hand in case there's a little something extra I'd like to add to my page. Okay, so before we get started with the actual layout and getting everything cut up and stuff, I just want to show you how I do the arrows, how I did the arrows for the layout, because I've already cut out the ones that I want to use. So you're going to need some paint, some fossilized amber, and some uncharted mariner. You'll need a paintbrush, and you are going to need some clear embossing ink, and also some glaze. You will need an embossing gun, okay, some paper to be able to put everything back. And remember, everything gets hot, so if you're doing them individually, you don't have them in the frame already, you'll just need something to hold your goodie with so that you don't burn your hands. Okay, so I'm just going to do one of each so that you can see how it's done. Okay, so make sure your paint has been shook up quite well. I'm going to open up and you're just going to put on a layer of paint on an arrow. Okay, I did the small little ones that are in here, you'll see later on, but basically just added a bit of fossilized amber. We'll do 2 because I could always use them. Like that. Right, and then we can do 2 on the Uncharted Mariner. Remember, a good shake. Make sure your brush is clean. Remember, if you get the yellow with the blue, we're going to get a little bit of green, which won't really matter because it'll work with this collection. So we're just going to put some Uncharted Mariner on. We'll do 2 arrows as well. Oops, a bit too much. So I'll just add this paint here. Nothing goes to waste. Just always remember that, like now I took out too much paint, but I can always then just go ahead and paint whatever's on my board and I can use it for later. It is colors that I will use on a regular basis. There you go. And making sure we've got it nice and smooth and a little bit of paint everywhere. Pop that in to wash the brush. We'll put those out the way. And always remember, never leave your goodies in the wet paint because the paint does act like an adhesive and you will end up with your goodies sticking to your surface. So just a quick cleanup. There we go. Okay, and then we can just dry these quickly. They feel pretty dry to me. I touch them. They don't have to be 100% dry, but they are nice and dry. So now we're going to need our clear embossing embossing ink. Okay, you want to get the ink painted on. You want to make sure that we that the glaze is ready to go. Our paper is here. Right. So I like to paint on the glaze. I can control where it goes. You can use the dabber if you like. What's nice is that by painting it on, I can put it on thicker and thinner on various areas. I can also see clearly where I've got it. I find sometimes with the dabber, it looks like you've got it everywhere, but then you haven't. And then also remember that it is the ink is thick, so it will make little globs here and there. You just want to work them in and make sure there isn't any. There we go. Now you could, if you remember that embossing glaze is translucent, so you could have also done some script stamping on these arrows that would have shown through. I'm just not sure the direction of the arrow, which the arrows are going to go, so that's why I haven't done the stamping. And the paper that I've used is quite busy, so it doesn't call for it. So I'm just putting on some glaze, making sure I'm covering each and every arrow that we've painted. It's getting a good amount on. Okay, and then you can lift that up and tap off the excess. Let's see, I missed a spot. I probably missed it with the brush. That's okay. Okay, so that looks to me like I've got some nice amount on. I missed a little spot there. The nice thing about it is I can always go back and add. Okay, then you just put the excess back in. Alright, keep that for later. Close, because if you're anything like me, it's going to end up everywhere. And then I have a lint roller that I use to pick up any excess glaze that may have fallen on my table. Yep, it's there. Okay, now we're going to heat set this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to heat set this until it starts to melt. Once it starts to melt, if you overheat it, it liquefies, and I'm going to use the heat gun then to move it around. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put on some music, but I'll leave it in real time so that you can see what happens. Okay, so remember, put your heat gun on, let it warm up, and then start to melt the glaze. Once it's melted, we're just going to use this to move it around. And there you go. You can see how that creates like a mottled kind of effect on the paint surface. And I think it's because the paint has like plastic properties that the glaze melts so well on it, because it definitely doesn't work with distress inks and oxides. I think because they soak into the paper. But there we go, a very nice effect. So you can do that to your arrows, okay, and the other little heart arrow that's on here, I also did it like that. Okay, so let's get started with the layout.